friends with each other, or we've worked in the same institutions and we've moved around the country. And at the end of the day, we do all look for the same thing. We're all looking for the same attributes in our potential students. So when I'm talking today, I'm going to be able to hopefully talk a little bit on behalf of other places that you might be thinking of applying to as well. So it gives you a bit of an idea of what, you know, we're all looking for on the whole in general. Now, obviously, some places you apply to may ask for very specific things that they want you to submit maybe in advance of an interview, or they might be looking for particular things. And if that's the case, do follow their guidelines. But overall, in terms of giving a general picture, this is what I'm going to be covering today, really. So hopefully it'll help, you know, for a lot of things right across your whole application and interview process. Okay, so in terms of what I'm going to cover today, there's kind of a few main things that I'm going to go through in terms of sort of an order for you. Firstly, you're going to talk about what makes a strong portfolio, how best to present yourself. So thinking about that whole process from portfolio to interview, how you set your portfolio up, and then how you actually use it in your interview. How to curate and structure your portfolio. So what I mean by curating is how you actually make choices in what you put into your portfolio in order to tell the best story about yourself. How to select the most appropriate work, and then how to prepare for interviews. So it really is kind of setting yourself up, hopefully ready for your interview. And the main thing I'm going to focus on really, and you'll hear me referring back to this quite a lot, is making sure that you feel confident and comfortable with that whole process when you get to interview in particular, and making sure you feel like you can own that interview as well. And this is where your portfolio is really, really going to help, because that will hopefully set you up ready to have plenty of material and examples that you can use in your interview so that you feel as confident as possible. You feel that you can talk with knowledge about what you're talking about, what you're presenting, and also then hopefully present yourself in the best possible way. Because that's what we're really looking for, that you can present yourself in the best possible light. So those are the things I'm going to keep picking up on throughout. And hopefully the kind of tips I'm going to give you, the things I'm going to talk about will enable you to do that. So let's just start with what makes a strong portfolio. The important thing about when you're putting your portfolio together, and I'm going to come back to what I said before about the idea of how we often think about an artist portfolio, but really when we talk about it, we're talking about a collection of items, a collection of evidence of what you've done already. And obviously it will really vary depending on which program you're applying for. And certainly across our 4 undergraduate programs that you're probably interested at the moment, from performance design to costume production, production technologies and stage management and production art, there'll be a range of different ways that you might have evidence already. So for instance, if we're looking at the production arts program, you may well already have some maybe examples of things that you've made. They might be sort of evidence of prop making, it may be kind of painting that you've done already, it may be drawing that you've done, it may be construction that you've already undertaken. You might have evidence of things you've made there. Similar with design, it may well be that you have some ideas of, you know, or designs that you've already undertaken or been part of. And the same with costume, you might have some pieces of work that you've made already. But with production technologies and stage management, it's not always so obvious, because you kind of think, well, am I actually making things here? Now, of course, what you're doing is you're doing a whole load of work that's still demonstrating your ability to produce work, but it might be in a different form. So it might be that you have possibly cue lists, or you might have lighting plans, or you might have prompt copies, or you might have schedules. You might have images and photographs as well from productions you've been involved in. And that's really important as well. So that just gives a sense of kind of the range of things. But in terms of, you know, kind of what you put in your portfolio, think about the impact. So edit it carefully for dynamic impact and don't throw everything in. So what I mean by that is think about how you put items in there that best present you, and you're not just putting a whole load of things in there which can get muddied and actually don't show a really sort of true story of what you've done already. Build a narrative, tell us a story, and take the reader, take us on a journey. So like anything, as human beings, we love telling stories. And the very thing that you've come here today to potentially kind of get more information about within the live performance industries and is all about telling stories. That's our art form. That's inherently within kind of what we do. So telling stories is really important. So take us on a journey through your work. Think about, where you've gone on a journey with maybe something that you've undertaken in maybe making something or a production of some sort. What's the story behind that? And there will always be a story behind, and that's the interesting thing. We love knowing what's behind what we're actually being presented with. But most important of all, what best represents you and your work? So you want to give us some really good ideas and indication about who you are, what you're interested in, what you want to do, and where you want to move to next. So again, it's another really important reason not to just throw everything in, because that might give a diluted version of, kind of what you're really interested in. Put in the things that you think really represent what you're doing now, what you want to do, and maybe what your journey is going to be in the future. Okay, so that's in terms of what you put in your portfolio. Now, how best to plan your portfolio so that you can actually take it on a journey from portfolio stage right through to interview. Again, coming back to the idea of the fact that you want to really own your portfolio in your interview. And what I mean by that is, again, using it as a way of being able to reinforce and support some of the things that you might want to talk about at the interview as well. So in interviews, we may well ask certain questions about things, and some of them might be quite generic questions, but some of them might be very, very specific. But if you've got examples in your portfolio that help answer some of those questions, where you can actually say, oh, I've got this thing that I did in response to that question, then your portfolio becomes really useful for that, because again, it builds that confidence for you in kind of knowing what you'll talk about, because you know your work better than anyone else. So that's what I mean about owning it, feeling in charge of it, feeling confident, and feeling that you're, that you know what you're talking about. So use your portfolio as a prompt to talk about your work. Think about the fact that in your portfolio, you will have maybe images, you might have photographs, you might have drawings, you might have plans, you might have samples. It could be a whole range of different things you have in there. So use them to kind of indicate towards, talk about this is where I actually undertook this particular activity. Talk about, describe maybe what's going on in a photograph, or, use it to be able to talk about a particular sample that you made and kind of what happened with the process of that. So use it as a prompt, use it as a way of being able to remind you of what you've done. Because again, in that moment when you're really nervous, it's very easy to forget all the amazing stuff that you've done already. So having your portfolio there as a prompt will really help just remind you more than anything else of actually what you've achieved and what you've done. Now, when it comes to putting your portfolio together, we're not looking for something that's, has a professional gloss on it. We're not looking for something that's kind of finished and ready for kind of employment in the professional sector. We're looking for your potential that you have at the moment. And we know that. We know where you're up to. We know what level you're at in terms of your education. We know what you've done already. We have a really good idea of where we think, you should be up to at this stage. So you don't need to somehow pretend that you have achieved and are kind of stretching way beyond what you've already done. What we're interested in is kind of what you have latent and ready and potential that we can help draw out of you. Our job is to hopefully inspire you. Our job is to help kind of tease things out of you. Our job is to look at kind of what you've got already and enable and support how you best show that off. That's our job. So we're looking for that potential, and we've been doing this for enough years that we can see where that potential lies. Even with something that may feel like it's very, very tiny, and to you may feel like this is insignificant, but if it's something that's important to you, then put it in your portfolio, because the importance in that and the significance to you is the thing that we can then draw the conversation out on. So we can see where that potential lies in you. So please do include things that you think aren't fully formed yet, but it's really important to you. And that leads me on to the final point here, which is being authentic. Again, you don't need to pretend to be anything or anyone other than you are already. Be you, because again, we know what you're at, what stage you're at the moment. We know what you've achieved already, and we want to hear more about that. We want to hear about you. We want to hear about what you're interested in, and we want to hear about, why you're wanting to undertake the study that, that hopefully you're about to apply for. That's what we're interested in, because we want to build a dialogue with you and we want to find out more about you. We're going to be spending 3 years with you, so we want to know more about kind of what you're about and who you are. So just be yourself, be authentic, and don't pretend to be anyone other than yourself. Now, the next thing is actually selecting work. How do you select the most appropriate work? And what I mean by appropriate work is kind of what's going to sell you. So in order to do that, think about what you're most proud of. Again, if you want to really sell yourself, the things that you're really pleased with, that you kind of achieved, whatever it might be, are the things that are worth putting in your portfolio, because they're the things you can talk really positively and confidently about. But also, it's not always about things that have gone brilliantly and are kind of the most shining lights in what you've done. Sometimes there may be things that you've been part of in maybe a team or a project where it was maybe a challenge for you, or things didn't go the way you wanted to. But that's also really important. And that's where, things that you've learned most from are important. So put in projects that you learned from as well, whether that be really, really positive, and you're all whether things that, as I say, were challenging for you. Because the key thing as well is that we're looking to see how well you articulate what you've learned from any different circumstances. And actually, as human beings, we learn more from the things that didn't turn out the way we expected than the things that did. So those are the things that are really valuable, because that's going to be happening through your study. It's going to be happening through your professional careers. And it's how you navigate that, how you turn that into an experience that you learn from. That's the important thing. Now, also thinking about what else you've generated as well. So often you think about, when you're putting together any kind of portfolio or evidence, you think about it needing to be just work that you've undertaken through your formal education, so through school or college. But actually, it may well be that many of you have discovered this pathway as a career because of other things outside of formal education, outside of school or college, that have inspired you. So anything that you've undertaken outside of that formal education environment is all self-generated work. It's stuff that, you've done, that you've either done on your own, that you've done with other groups of people, that you've done in other kind of communities. But what that does do is it demonstrates the skills and initiative that you have to kind of pursue this outside of your formal education. And that initiative is, again, really, really important. The fact that you've taken the time and the effort beyond and above your education to actually undertake it, and that that you feel excited and inspired enough by it that you want to pursue it outside. It also may well be that you don't have the potential opportunity, or you don't have the resources available to you within your school or college environment to do some of the things that you want to do. And that's not an unusual thing, particularly with maybe working with materials. Say, for instance, it may be you don't have the capacity within your education environment to use those materials, but you might have the potential to be doing that in another space outside of the school or college, or even at home, in which case, again, if you can undertake those skills, then do so. And put that material and that content in your portfolio, because again, that's the exciting stuff that we're looking for. Also, voluntary work. So it doesn't have to be with you maybe kind of like using materials and demonstrating practical skills. It could be the way that you work with other people as well. There's so much of our profession within the performance industries and associated professions around, TV and film and museums and gallery work and the experience economy. All of those are all about working with people and working in teams. Every single thing is about collaboration and teamwork. So actually, the work that you might do with other organisations in voluntary work, work where you maybe kind of help out in whatever form that might be, is also really important, because again, that demonstrates your initiative in how you work with other people, and a self-discipline as well. The idea of kind of working with other organisations means that you care about working with people, and therefore that's really important for us to see that and for you to evidence that as well. So please do bring that, to your portfolio as well, and therefore also you can bring that to your interview, because it will make a fantastic conversation piece as well. And then something that people often ask as well is whether you have to have just finished work or finished projects in your portfolio. That's not the case at all necessarily. You know, we're interested as much in unfinished projects because we like to see maybe the stage that you're at the point where you may well be presenting to us. And we know full well that, particularly when you're undertaking your final year of school and college, that you'll have projects that are kind of long running projects. And the point at which you apply for a position, apply for a place, and then maybe have an interview might be partway through that particular project. And if that's the case, that's fine, because we're as excited to hear about kind of how you're going to progress with it as you may well be as well. So, and again, it demonstrates a way that you can describe where you've got to so far. Also, the other important thing as well is that we like seeing process. Process is crucial because we can see a finished photograph of something. We can see the finished show or the item or the object that you've made. But, you know, that doesn't necessarily give us the full picture of what your involvement has been in it. So the process is really important, and unfinished projects often have give us a really good glimpse into the process. And also, of course, we can then talk about, you know, what do you want to happen next? Because you might not necessarily know, but, you know, it's a really nice way of thinking about where do you go from here. So unfinished projects may have enough of a seed of an idea to be really very valuable. So, you know, do think about that. If it's something that you're really enjoying, then do put that in as well. Don't just put unfinished work in for the sake of it, though, just because you feel that you need to. Think about if you really want to talk about it, and put that in as well. So that's an idea about kind of what to put in there. Now, how do you curate that and how do you structure your portfolio? So what I mean by that is, how do you actually start to put it together, piece it together to tell the story about yourself that I was describing earlier on? So a format is probably something that's really important for you to know, thinking about the format of how you actually put it together. Now you can use different formats. So you might want to use a website. You might have a website that you've created already. You might have something that's maybe a closed website, and that's absolutely fine. It might not be a published live website. You might want to format it in something like WordPress, which allows you to maybe put lots of images and things together with some text and annotations. But then you can keep that as a confidential website by just having a username and a password. And that's absolutely fine. It means you don't have to publish it live and public. You can still keep it confidential and keep it private, as long as obviously you make sure that you're sharing the username and the password so that whoever's accessing it can actually access it. That's the important thing. Or you might want to do it as a presentation, and it could be straightforward series of slides like a PowerPoint, or it could be something like Prezi. But the important thing about a presentation form is make sure you put it into some form that we can open. So it's a good idea if you're thinking about using PowerPoint, and particularly if you want to use Keynote, to put it into a PDF format that we can then open. The reason that's particularly important with Keynote is the fact that we use predominantly PCs. We tend to use Macs for sound and lighting software and design software, but not as much. So it means that when we as academic staff are accessing your presentations online, we don't necessarily have a Mac that we look at it through. So Keynote, by all means, do use it if you're used to using it, but please, please, please convert it into a PDF that we can then actually open. So any sort of form that you use, make sure that it's very easy to access. And that's why PDF is very valuable, because of course, the whole point of it is that it enables it to be opened on multiple platforms. Now, one of the big major questions that I think everyone always has is kind of how many pages and how much does it need to be? So the thing here to think about is, rather than thinking about individual pages, think about projects. And the reason I suggest that is because, going back to the idea of the importance of process, so having a combination of process and then final images is really, really important, because that gives us the idea of the whole story. That gives us the journey of the project. And that means that you can actually have a number of different pages in there that give us that kind of journey, that take us through from kind of the early stages through to maybe a final finished thing. It could be that you only have final images, and that's absolutely fine as well. But if you've got process work, then put that in there. And that can be anything from sketches to diagrams, spreadsheets, plans, all sorts of different things that you might have in there. Q lists, as I mentioned before, a whole range of different things you have in there. So, you know, if they tell that story, then put them in there as well. And again, this is particularly important for, I think, particularly for the production technologies and stage management, because you may well have a whole range of different pages of all sorts of kind of text, really, more than anything else. But those are important, you know, those schedules, those cue lists, they're all equally as important. So you can treat those as almost like the same way as we would treat an image as part of your process. So think about it in a group of projects rather than individual pages, and then think about how many projects you actually put into your portfolio. So somewhere in the region around about maybe 4 to 8 projects is absolutely fine, because that means that's enough for us to talk about, but not too many to be overwhelming. Think about, you know, too many projects, we won't have the time to go through them, to look at them. So 4 to 8 is a sort of a bit of a good number. If you have less than that, don't worry about it. Again, the important thing is that you're putting in work that really showcases you, that's really, really important to you. And I've had instances in the past where I've interviewed students based on really only a couple of pieces of work. And, you know, there's one student in particular who had this, you know, particularly standout piece of art that they'd produced. And had a really lovely story around it, and we got talking about it. And that was really the one single thing that kind of, for myself and my colleague at the time, that gave us enough of an indication that they would be a good student. And we offered them a place. And they graduated with a first-class degree, and they've gone on to become one of the most successful West End performance designers. So it just goes to show that, you know, we're looking for that potential. We're looking for something that talks of you, that's about you. So think about the idea of sort of like a few projects rather than just trying to overwhelm with loads and loads of stuff. And that's what I mean about curating it. Think about the journey. And again, coming back to what I talked about before, think about extracurricular projects. So they don't all need to be projects that you've generated through your formal education, through school and college. These can be things you've done outside of your education as well. Things that you've done on your own, that you do at home, maybe, you know, that you've kind of made yourself. That you've set yourself almost like a brief, that you've explored something, you've discovered something, and you want to experiment with how you reproduce that yourself. So put those projects in as well. They're really important. Or even projects that are maybe in kind of working with youth theatres and other groups, maybe that you've undertaken where you had roles in them, put those in as well. When it comes to how you present your portfolio, keep the background really uncluttered. Try and keep the pages really nice and clean and neat. Don't put too much kind of fancy sort of work around it. Don't have fancy backgrounds. It's often kind of very easy when you get seduced by the idea of how PowerPoint might be able to give you some kind of nice, exciting backgrounds, but actually we want the work to speak for itself. So let your work do the job. Also, when you're thinking about adding text and annotations as well, think about making sure you keep that as uncluttered as possible. Keep it a nice, clean font. Don't use anything that's really, really fancy and scrolly. Make it really legible. Think about making it as accessible as possible. We all need to have as much kind of accessible information available to us as you do as students. So make sure you keep it accessible for us as well. And then finally, think about what the rationale for your order is. So what I mean by that is that there's no right or wrong of which order you put things in your portfolio. You know, how do you want us to read it? You know, do you want us to read it kind of in chronological order? Do you want us to read it in reverse chronological order? So that means kind of the last thing that you did first. Do you want us to read it thematically? And what I mean by that is maybe particularly, let's say, for instance, if you've applied for the production arts course, where of course it's made up of a combination of prop making, construction and painting. So you might want to kind of group your prop making together, group your painting together and group your construction work together. Or if maybe you're applying for the production technology and stage management course, it may be that you've done a range of lighting work, you've done some sound, you've done some stage management, and you might want to group them and cluster them. Or you might want to just kind of run it in a chronological order. So it's up to you, but have a think about what the rationale for your order is. Also have a think about the fact that when we open your portfolio, the very first thing is going to be the thing that we do remember. So make sure that you put maybe something that you're most proud of, that you're most excited by as the very first thing as well. And you know, you will know kind of what in your heart is going to be the thing you're most excited by. It might be helpful for you to get someone else to have a look through it as well, because when you're really, really close to your work, sometimes you can't get that objective distance from it. So maybe get someone else to look at it and kind of get their reactions and their feedback on how they're experiencing it as they're looking through it, and maybe base your decisions on how they experience it. It's not that you necessarily get them to tell you how to do it, but what's the experience of them looking through it? You know, which things do they coo over? Which things are they maybe a little bit confused by, in which case do you rethink how you lay it out? Which things do they think work really well together? Which things do they think work in order? So get a sense of their reaction as well. So that's what I mean about thinking about the rationale for your order. Okay, so then moving on next, let's have a little think about your actual interview, and how you're going to prepare for your interview, how you're going to maybe use your portfolio to prepare for your interview. So this comes back to the idea of you owning your interview. Again, I've mentioned that before. So if you've got your portfolio, you've got something there already. Also, have a think about what's going to make you most confident in your interview. So have a think about what you wear even as well. Although you might be doing your interview online, actually how you kind of present yourself is still important, because you still want to give a sense of kind of who you are, your identity as well, and how you present yourself through how you present your identity through how you present yourself as well. So if that's going to give you confidence, then do that. Make sure you do that. Think about what you've got available to you. Think about the information you have available to you. Think about the research you've done already. And I'll come back to that in just a minute. But think about kind of what's going to allow you to feel most confident. And again, be yourself, be authentic. Don't be anyone other than yourself. Be you, be clear about what you do and don't know as well. If you're asked something that you're unsure about, it may well be that you, rather than kind of trying to spend a lot of time and worrying about coming up with an answer that you don't really know, just say that. Just say, oh, I'm not actually sure about that. I haven't really necessarily experienced that yet, or I haven't encountered that yet. And the person interviewing you will hopefully be able to move on to another question that does allow you to actually maybe elaborate a little bit more. So it might just be that they can then prompt your memory of something. So just be yourself. Don't try and sort of be anything else other than who you are. Allow your passion about your future to show through as well. That's really, really crucial, because you've applied, or you will be applying for these particular courses. We want to know as much about why you want to as kind of what you've done already. That's the thing, because our job is to enable you and to support you through to hopefully achieve that goal of being able to work in this industry. So if we know where your passion comes from, then we will be able to kind of find out a little bit more about that. And it's the thing that you're most likely to be asked about in your interview as well. There are going to be some really, really crucial key things that you will always be asked. One of them is likely to be, why are you interested in doing this? Why are you interested in studying at the particular place you've applied for? Why are you interested in doing this? And also often the question will be, what first inspired you? So do have a think about that, because those will be some key questions you're inevitably going to be asked, or around those kind of questions. And this is where you must do your research and be prepared. So, we will always want to know what it is that attracted you to want to apply to Royal Central School of Speech and Drama. So do your research, find out about the school, find out about what we offer, find out about who our famous alumni are and what they're doing now already. Think about kind of who it is that has inspired you maybe to apply in the first place, or what it is that you've experienced already. So do your research and then be prepared. The more you are prepared, then the much easier and more confident you're going to be in your interview, because they will be the very, very straightforward questions that you will then kind of just know just like that. And also be as specific as you can with your answers and don't be vague. We often find that kind of one of the questions that we really want to drill into more and more, and the more you can answer and be specific, the better, is thinking about that future, or thinking about kind of, where you want to be. And some people already have an idea, and you might not have an idea yet. And that's very, very likely that you won't have an idea. You just know that you're really excited by this particular industry. So find out more. Keep asking yourself the question of like, why do I enjoy this? What has inspired me in the first place? What has led me to this? What do I think? What have I been to see that I'm really inspired by? What have I watched? What have I listened to? What music do I listen to? What art am I interested in? What shows have I seen? Who have I seen? think about all those things and be really specific about kind of your answers. Keep asking yourself the questions of kind of like, why do I want to do this? And sometimes they might be really, really, again, coming back to the really tiny detail. It could be an experience of somewhere you went to when you were very, very young, and it's lived with you from then on, and you know full well that it's that very experience that's kind of rattled around inside you. So, you know, be specific. Don't think that any answer is a silly answer, because this comes back to being you and being authentic. Your answer of why you're excited and interested is about you and who you are. So, you know, don't shy away from a specific answer if you think it might somehow be silly. It's not silly at all. It's better to have that very specific answer than it is to kind of be very generic and vague, because generic and vague answers don't give us a really good idea about kind of where your passion comes from. So really do try and be specific. Okay, so that's given hopefully a really good indication about kind of what we're looking for. But obviously the important thing is you get as much as you can out of this. So I'm now going to stop sharing the screen, because that will allow me to see the chat. And this is a chance for you to, there we are, hopefully. Move that there. I'm going to open up the chat, and this is a chance for you to ask questions now. So let's see, I'm just going through, seeing where everyone joined us from. So that's very exciting. We've got people from all over the world here.
I don't think there's any specific questions yet, Kathy, about other than about the recording, which I've answered.
Yeah, okay, that's great.
So, oh, there we go. There's a new question. So just these ones now on the bottom about the portfolios, the last two. You can see all three there. So there's one for, do you have any examples of portfolios, starting from there? Yeah.
Okay. No, we don't send out examples of portfolios, specifically because, again, it comes back to the idea of you and who you are. So the whole point of this guidance really is to give you a sense of how to structure it. We don't tell you how you need to lay your portfolio out. What I'm giving you here is really kind of the sort of thing we're looking for. So that's why we absolutely specifically don't give you examples of portfolios. You will get guidance through within your own education environment, whether you're at school or whether you're at college. You often will find that they'll give you guidance on kind of what to look for, and you'll start to find that that comes increasingly more and more as you start to make your way towards certainly the end of your course, but should hopefully begin giving you some guidance now. But please do go back and look at this recording afterwards, because the key things in this recording really are about how to structure it and what to think about when you're putting in there. Does that help answer that question? Or is there anything else specifically? If you want to pop it in the chat, there's anything specific that I can help with, then please by all means ask. But I will move on to the next question here, which is, how important is having an art design A-level qualification, and would not having one give you a disadvantage? Okay, so the important thing here is, I think this L is which course you're applying for, because I would say that certainly with the performance design course, some kind of design qualification is probably pretty crucial in there, because it gives you the whole language and articulation that you're going to need when it comes to designing. If it's costume production, maybe not so much so, and certainly not necessarily at all with production technologies and stage management. Maybe with production arts as well, in terms of kind of materials you're used to working with, but not always necessarily. Again, this is why we always interview every single person that applies, because we want to see what you've done and we want to talk to you. And sometimes your qualifications might not meet what you think what you're looking for, but by actually us talking to you and meeting you, it gives us a chance to find out what you can do. So hopefully that answers that question for you.
Sorry, Kathy, there was just one before that one as well. Between those two, it says, is it okay if the portfolio website is public?
Okay, Vika. Yes, that's just in that. Sorry, I missed that one. Yeah, absolutely. If you've got a public portfolio website already, yes, by all means, go ahead and use it. And in fact, that's great, because it means that you've already started thinking about how you're structuring, how you present yourself to the world. So you're already doing the job that we're kind of looking for. And in a way, I think actually that really starts to help the answer, maybe the question that is it Amaya was asking before about having examples. Yes, exactly that. Look online, look at kind of how people maybe look at sort of professional portfolios. As I said before, this is not about a professional portfolio, but look at what other people actually, how they present themselves, you know, what they put out there in the world. And that might give you a little bit of an indication as well. But yeah, great. A public website is absolutely perfect. Do make sure that it's tailored for the course that you're applying for. That's one thing I will say. Okay, so Megan, your question here. Well, thank you. I'm glad it's been helpful. I'm really pleased that this is the important thing. If it feels less daunting, that's my job done. I'm really pleased about that, because that's what we want to achieve here, that you feel more comfortable and confident. So any advice about costume production portfolios? I would say the important thing is being able to give a sense of understanding maybe how you start to form putting costume together, maybe thinking a bit about silhouette. You don't necessarily need to have done any major tailoring, but just understanding kind of how structure works. So having examples of having maybe created work already would be really, really good. But also, of course, the important thing is, you know, costume production involves wardrobe as much as it involves making and production as well. So thinking about maybe understanding structures of costume teams as well. So you might want to kind of have a look at that. If you've been to a show and you have a program, have a look at the credits in the program and see who's involved, you know, what the team is made up of, and do a little bit of research into all those different roles as well. So you can do as much research and work on understanding more about the people involved as much as kind of the work that you're making yourself as well. So a combination of all of those things, Megan, would be great. Okay, so Tahila, can I bring a physical portfolio, or is an online one preferred? So there's two stages to this. In the very first instance, when you actually apply for an interview, when you send your application in, what will happen is that you will actually get a response back from Hannah and their team, who will be able to offer you updates, and will also then ask you to upload a portfolio as well. So that's the first stage. So that will have to be a digital online one anyway, which is kind of really part of the information that I was giving earlier. But then, depending on the format of your interview, whether it's, and again, speaking on behalf of kind of other drama schools as well, thinking about whether you've got either an in-person interview or an online one, means that you will be able to potentially take a physical portfolio with you. You might want to take more work, because sometimes, you know, you might have completed more work subsequently between the point of sending in maybe a digital one and then actually having your interview. So yes, by all means, take work with you, take the work you've shown already, or, you know, take maybe extra stuff. I think this often works very well for people that have kind of tactile material based items as well. But of course, if you're doing an online interview, being able to screen share your portfolio is equally as valuable, because again, you can use it as a talking point actually in your interview as well. Okay, so just coming back to, yeah, Elle, yours was a production arts one. So again, yes, I think if you've got some evidence of making, it doesn't have to be an art A-level or art qualification. It could be maybe a design technology qualification. It could be something in terms of working with kind of materials. It could be a whole range of different things. The working with materials is obviously really important with the production arts program. So anything else that demonstrates that idea of working with materials is, you know, as valuable as an art design qualification, or even kind of working with technical drawing as well, digital technical drawing, because particularly for the construction side of production arts, that's where it's a really, really valuable skill to have. So I think with applying for production arts in particular, if you have evidence already rather than qualifications, that's possibly something that's going to kind of be more valuable to you. So don't worry too much about that qualification if you're already generating and making kind of work yourself. I hope that helps answer that for you. Okay, Maya, if we were to place different photo of a different project per side, would that be a suitable layout, or should the laying out lots of photos of the making of it as well? Okay, so again, I think this comes down to the idea of having a range of images or material that demonstrates a process and a final product as well. So yeah, having kind of maybe a photograph of your finished product, and then maybe having some kind of pieces that kind of lead up to it is good. I think be careful, if I'm kind of reading your question correctly, be careful about not putting too many images and photographs on sort of one, let's say, page or slide, because it gets really, really busy. And also it does mean that we can't see the detail as well. So try again, coming back to the point I made about keeping it clean, keeping it as simple as possible. So, if you've got an image that's kind of got quite a lot of busyness in it, maybe just have that single image as one slide. And then maybe have another slide that has a series of other possibly smaller images that show the kind of process leading up to it. So I hope that helps answer that question. May, you ask a question here, should I include only my most recent work and how far back is relevant? So this is a really good question. What's relevant? In a way, it comes back to how you best present yourself, because what's most relevant to you is kind of how best you can present what you're, what you have achieved already, what your experience has been. So recent work obviously is important, but how far back you go, it could be months, it could be years even, because if you've been undertaking kind of a number of activities over a number of years and you feel that all of that actually builds towards it, then that's important. But again, don't just put everything in. Again, think about how you're curating it. So it could well be that there's something that you actually did a few years ago, and you feel that it's so relevant to what you're doing now that that's actually almost more important than something that you've done recently. So you remove the recent thing actually in order to present that, because you don't want to put too many things in there. Or you might want to have two things alongside each other, which are possibly a very recent activity and kind of something from a while ago, but they speak to each other. They have a kind of a way that they reflect one another. So you might want to put both of those in as well. And again, going back to how you decide to lay out your portfolio, and the order in which you put it, that might be a way in which you do it. You show how you've progressed maybe from one period of your life to another as well. So yes, so the relevance is really down to kind of how you think it best reflects you. That's the answer to that, really. I hope that helps in that question. Noah, okay, so your question here is, for a technical portfolio, should we still be showing analysis skills as well? I know some schools like to see how well we would analyse lighting, sound designs of productions we've seen. Yeah, that's great. I would say be careful not to put too much text in your portfolio. So you don't need to put whole essays in there, but certainly annotating maybe images of things, or, even kind of images of shows that you've been to, where you do have kind of short analysis of what you've gained from it, how you saw the lighting kind of being used, and what your interpretation of that was and how it's used, is absolutely brilliant. So I think kind of keep it in short sections, in kind of paragraphs of text, but analysis is absolutely brilliant, because that's something that we're going to be asking you to do all the time, at Central in particular. And for those of you that are applying for degrees, then that's what a degree is, and particularly an honours degree. A degree isn't just about demonstrating what you can do, it's thinking about how you do it as well. So we're going to be asking you to analyse your process all the time. So if you're able to demonstrate an ability to do that already, then that is brilliant, and we would love to see that in some shape or form. So brilliant. Thank you for that question, Noah. That's really, really useful. Yuming, so you've got a question here, which is, thank you for explaining detail. Good. Planning to apply for performance design, was wondering if any specific aspects are considered more important in a portfolio for this course compared to other programs. Are there certain qualities or elements that you particularly look for in a performance design portfolio? Okay, that's a really good question. So for the performance design program, if you do have evidence of working in 3D, then that's wonderful, but we don't necessarily expect that. So if you've already undertaken some sort of design and you've made models, or you have drawings, then that would be lovely to see it, but we don't necessarily expect that. What we do want to see is your ability to be able to articulate in some form of drawing. Drawing, although we don't do everything as a hand drawing, it is important to know how you can actually interpret and make marks as well. That's important. We will also look for your ability to be able to be conceptual in your thinking as well. So how do you take an idea and how do you form that into something which is about to create an environment in which a piece is going to happen? So that's the main kind of thing really, is the difference between performance design and production art is that the performance design is very much about the kind of the thinking, the conceptualizing, the ideas, whereas production art is way more about kind of the realization and the use of materials in how you respond to and form the answers to a lot of those conceptual ideas that designers will present. So yes, so how you form an idea, how you draw from that, how you shape it into an environment, and then how you articulate that through whatever form, in sketches, in drawings, in images, in plans, in whatever form is fine. But also, you know, bringing any evidence of kind of your art and design to that is equally as valuable. So I think because performance designs encompass so many things, actually it allows a big range of work that you can bring to that. So there's no specific thing there, you know, the kind of the evidence around art and design in all its forms is actually what's valuable for the performance design program. Okay, so how many slides do you suggest for each project? So this is going back to the point I was making about not really thinking about how many pages, but thinking about how many projects. So it may well be that you have one project where you've got maybe just a couple of slides, a couple of pages, because actually that's all you need to be able to kind of show it off. Or it may be there's another project where you have possibly, you know, 6 or 7 because you need a whole process to demonstrate through there. So again, it's going to really vary depending on what it is that you're trying to show. Just keep reminding yourself of, what am I really trying to showcase here? What am I trying to show off here? And that will help you decide on whether you can do it all with one image or you actually need several images to be able to show that off. I hope that helps, Ava. Okay, so another question here from Yuming, which is about the UCAS. After applying through UCAS, how long does it usually take until you receive the portfolio request, and how much time is there between submitting the portfolio and getting an interview offer? Hannah, can I hand this over to you maybe to answer?
Yeah, of course I can answer this one. So generally it will take about 1 to 3 working days. During busy periods might be a bit longer, and if you apply during a public holiday like the Christmas holiday, it will take maybe like over a week, but generally it's about 1 to 3 days that you'll get the invite. After your interview, it can be anything between a day and 3 weeks. We do try to get your offers to you as soon as possible, but it can sometimes take up to 3 weeks. So yeah, hopefully that gives you an idea.
Lovely. Thanks very much, Hannah. Yeah, I think the main thing I say is just bear in mind that obviously you're going to be applying, everyone's applying at a pretty similar time. So we do have a kind of a critical mass when there's a lot of people applying, and we try and make our way through as many, you know, seeing as many people as possible. But because we do interview everyone who applies, that's the thing. We need to kind of make sure we give everyone a reasonable amount of time. So we need to also kind of be planning all of that. Plus, of course, we're teaching. So we're trying to fit it in around our kind of everyday teaching as well. So please do bear with us. We will absolutely see you, but it might just take a little bit longer sometimes, depending on you know, kind of where you've managed to land in amongst the kind of the applications. So thanks for that, Hannah. Okay, Maya, lovely. We've got another question here. So for a portfolio and costume production, if you take multiple creative subjects or have done in the past as well as present, would it be a problem to include more than 8 examples? For example, if I had 8 examples from textiles, but I had 2 from art and 3 from graphic design, should I still include them all or be more selective about textiles projects? Okay, I think now this is an interesting one, because that's, you know, potentially to have that huge range of different skills and experience is fantastic, and I would say that's wonderful, and you know, that will be great. In fact, I want to see your portfolio now because I'm excited to know what you might have in there. But I think you do still need to think about showing yourself off best as possible. Start maybe laying things out in order of which you think are your best, and keep going through them, and maybe do a little bit of an edit from there and keep coming back to it and kind of thinking, do I really need all of that? I think I would say you've got 2 from art, so definitely include those, because again, that shows your ability to be able to communicate through different forms and conceptualize, which art does. Graphic design might be good because it does show your ability to be kind of quite precise. So there might be something of value in there. And then you might want to look at your 8 textiles examples and think which really show off. Or you might decide your graphic design doesn't matter. So, and your textiles might be really important. So I think just keep going back and looking through them, keep laying them out in order of importance, and keep sort of maybe editing down and see what you end up with. And again, this is a good example of where I would suggest that you maybe get other people, you know, whose judgment you trust, to kind of go through them with you and sort of say, you know, what do they think really shows you off? Because again, you might be too close to them to necessarily see, you know, kind of what presents you in your best possible light. But I think, yeah, keep going back and editing yourself all the time. This is really where the curating thing comes in more than anything else. So I hope that wasn't confusing at all. That was perfect. I understand exactly what you mean, and I hope my answer helped you a little bit there as well, and what equally wasn't confusing. Okay, and again, you've got the question there about digital portfolio. Hopefully I answered this earlier about, yes, still bring samples to a physical interview as well if you've got them. There's no harm in that. You've got nothing to lose by bringing stuff with you. The worst that's going to happen is that maybe there isn't time to look at everything. That's the worst that's going to happen. Or that you end up with a really sore neck when you get home from carrying so much stuff as you're traveling. That's the other thing as well. So think about how you carry stuff. Okay, May, for production arts, is it advantageous to have theatre specific examples of work, or would more general design examples work just as well? To be honest, May, you know, all examples are useful. I think because for production arts, often people are moving through, or graduates from these areas move through quite fluidly from theatre into film, into TV, into events, into the retail sector, into museums and galleries. There's so many different areas that actually these specific courses lend themselves to. So actually having that range, again, might actually bring more examples of your work that demonstrate a range as well of opportunities for you. So don't worry if you haven't got a lot of theatre specific examples. If you have, include them, but also think about other things in there as well. Okay, Tahila, is it relevant if I include photos of my initial inspiration as part of my process, even if it isn't my own work in my portfolio? That's a brilliant, brilliant question. And yeah, absolutely. Sometimes knowing your starting point for something can be really, really valuable, because we can see how you've then interpreted from there. Just be really careful and make sure that you do clearly annotate that, you know, kind of where that inspiration comes from. And I think often you'll find that if you've had maybe a project you've been set where there's a particular maybe artist whose work you've got to respond to, you will find that you're doing that anyway. But that's a fantastic question. Really, really good. Just going back to Maya there, sorry I missed it. Yes, good. I'm glad they're helpful. And then Vika as well, question here, maybe a bit off topic. I'm still considering several courses for the acting MA. Is it better to come in person, or are the chances of getting in the same whether it's online or in person? Hannah or Elaine, you might be able to answer this better than I can in terms of the MA acting, because I'm not sure.
Yes, I mean, no, you wouldn't be advantageous coming in. You would be, I do believe, I think most of them are done for the first round of acting auditions as a self-tape anyway. So, but no, even if the second round is they would invite you probably to come in, but I think some people have the option to do it online. But it's no advantageous to come in. You know, everyone is treated equally, of course, because some people cannot travel in. So, yes. So yeah, if you're internationals, definitely, or if you're out of the UK, sorry, I just saw that. So absolutely, all our international students would be doing their audition second round remotely anyway. Okay.
I think, and that goes for like all of our programs. Actually, we try and make them the interview process as accessible as possible for everybody, and therefore actually, you know, kind of wherever you are in the world, whether it be kind of really, really close and you're still unable to travel in, or further away, then yeah, we will do what we can to make sure we see you. Okay, Megan, build off my last question in relevance to costume production, could one of my projects be centered around wardrobe as opposed to the more practical projects? Yes, absolutely. Again, I think as I mentioned before, the costume production course actually does consist of elements of wardrobe and costume supervision and management, as well as actual making as well. So very much, yeah, if you've had an experience of that already, then that's brilliant, because again, you're already demonstrating your knowledge and understanding of what it's like to even just be in that world as well. So that can be really, really helpful. You know, have a think about what you've gained from that, what that experience might be for you as well. That's brilliant. Okay, Lily, could you give a brief summary of what to include and not include in an online portfolio for stage management and technical theatre? Yes, definitely. I think I've mentioned this a few times specifically because it's always the programme that I think people find most challenging. And that's why particularly for the production technologies and stage management course, we don't specify that you must have like, we don't overemphasize the idea of a portfolio. We do suggest that we want you to have kind of plenty of evidence, but what that actually does look like then for you, it can be anything from maybe plans and drawings, cue lists, prompt copies. It could be layouts, but it can also be photographs of productions that you've worked on, where you've been involved in. It could be maybe things that you've seen that you then want to talk more about. I think the question that came from Noah earlier was really interesting about the idea of analysing something you've seen. So again, you could do the same kind of thing where you actually have seen something and you give a little bit of a kind of a quick summary of kind of what you learned from that, kind of how you've analysed it, how you sort of interrogated it as well. So that can be equally as useful. Caris is adding here, if I have cue lists and similar written type documents, should I put the writing in or put in a photo of the document? If you have got if you're going to digitize it, you'll be scanning it anyway or photographing it, so it will be digitized in that form. So I think that's the best way. I would say if you've got original documents like that, then scan them. Let's see them. If they're in a written form, if it's your writing, if it's your layout, let's see it in its original form. You don't need to somehow represent it in a kind of a more sanitized way that you think we need to see. So yeah, all of those kind of bits and pieces, put them in. And again, coming back to anything that you feel helps as evidence illustrate what you've maybe done already or what you've seen or what you're inspired by. So yes, so hopefully for both Lily and Caris, that helps answer that a little bit. It could be a whole manner of different things, but as I say, with the the production technology and stage management program, there isn't as much emphasis on that because we really want to talk to you more. But if you've got evidence of what you've done, then show us. Let's see it. Let's see what you've done. Show off what you've done. I think is the important thing. Okay, Maya, got another question here. Great. For a costume course, should I include initial design drawings and then final designs and then the final outcome? And if the course is only costume production, should I include these? Yeah, absolutely. Put all of those in. That's the thing with costume. Oh, sorry, just lost your note. There's another one's come in. Yes, I think regards for the different courses you're applying for, whether it's a production course or a costume production or costume design course, I think both relevant, it's relevant to both of them, the drawings, the final designs, and then the final outcome. Again, all of us are interested in your process. We all want to see process. So it's relevant to any one of those courses, I would say, any of the costume courses you're thinking about. So yeah, do. Again, if you've done the work, let's see it. Yeah, let's see your process. Okay, we've got for managing, yes, a question here for managing technical team and help create concert shows, schedules and cues. Should be included in a portfolio as you recommended earlier. Is there anything else that would be in the portfolio too? No, I would say that's it. You've got a pretty good idea there. All those things I mentioned before for the technical technical theatre, for stage management, all of those things are useful. Again, it's just making sure that any of those bits of paperwork and stuff or plans, drawings, whatever, that you are able to explain what your role was more than anything else. That's the thing. But it's evidence to show that, you've got some experience of doing it. And of course, it's how you talk about it then, because those are the kind of things that when it comes to an interview, you can use as examples to be able to help sort of illustrate maybe some of the questions that you might be asked. Good. Okay, that was a brilliant set of questions. Thank you for all of those. And I hope that for others, that those questions that were being asked, that they helped answer some of your questions as well. But I think they were really well considered. And the fact that you're asking those kind of questions already is good because it means that you really are starting to kind of like get to grips with what it is you want to do, which is brilliant. And I'll just come back to what I said before. we're interested in the passion that you have for this. That's what we're really interested in. And that's why we interview all of you, because we want to see that. We want to meet you. We want to feel that. We want to sort of see how that manifests for you as a person and your personality. So I think these have been brilliant, these questions. I don't know about you, Elaine and Hannah. What do you think about the questions?
Absolutely, really interesting. Great questions from everybody there. It's interesting for us to see what kind of things people are asking, so that we could include more information about those things perhaps on our website in the future as well. So it's great. Yeah. I've just dropped the admissions team email in the chat there. So if you are applying and you've got questions as you go along, admissions are probably your best port of call to ask questions, and they can direct them to Kathy if she needs to answer them, or anyone else in the academic team. But otherwise, I will be I have everyone's emails who signed up for this session today, so I'll be sending you the recording of the sessions. You can go best it in your own time, and please get in touch if you've got any more questions about applying. That's all from me. Hannah?
Yeah, no, really great. I really enjoyed actually listening to Kathy talk about the portfolio, because I have all the guidelines and I send them out, but it's great to actually hear more detail, and it's really exciting. I can't wait to receive your applications. And as Elaine said, if you have any questions at all, not just about the portfolio, but maybe about offers or the UCAS process or the interview process, do feel free to send me an email at admissions@cssd.ac.uk.
Okay, shall I finish this session? Thank you, everyone.
Yes, good luck to all of you.
Yes, we look forward to receiving your applications. Thank you. Thanks, Kathy. Thanks, everyone. Hannah. Okay,
bye-bye.
Thank you. Thanks, bye.